In this video, we'll reveal the fascinating principle behind codependency and how it is not weakness, but a survival pattern your brain learned early in life. And importantly, I'll show you how God designed your mind and nervous system to heal through unconditional love rather than performance. This video is going to blow your mind because once you understand what your brain was actually doing beneath the surface, so many things about your relationships, emotions, and behaviors will suddenly start making sense. And honestly, I'm super excited that you're here for this journey. Let me begin by saying, if you grew up learning that love came with conditions, that you had to perform, stay small, not be too much, or always be the one who held everything together, hear this before anything else. You didn't choose codependency. Your brain chose survival.
Maybe even now, as an adult, you find yourself constantly reading the room at work. You notice the tone in someone's voice immediately. You feel anxious if a manager sounds disappointed. You overthink messages. You apologize even when you've done nothing wrong. You work harder than everyone else because somewhere deep down, your nervous system learned that being useful made you safer.
Or maybe it shows up in your family. You became the peacemaker, the emotional support system, the one who absorbs everybody else's stress while quietly ignoring your own. You learned very early that keeping other people emotionally stable helped keep the environment predictable. And this is what's fascinating. Most of this learning began before you even understood what emotions were. As a child, your brain was constantly scanning for one thing. What do I need to do to stay connected, safe, and loved here? If love felt uncertain, inconsistent, or emotionally conditional, the brain adapted. It built strategies. Stay quiet, don't upset people, perform well, be needed, don't ask for too much, keep everybody happy. Over time, those survival responses stopped feeling like strategies and started feeling like your identity. But they were never your identity. They were adaptations your nervous system built to survive environments where love didn't always feel emotionally safe or predictable. It built a strategy long before you had language for what was happening. There is a precise neurological reason you became the person who gives more than you receive, who manages other people's emotions before your own, who feels responsible for whether everyone else is okay. Your nervous system wasn't broken. It was protecting you. And today, neuroscience and scripture are going to show you what it was protecting you from, and what God says love was always supposed to cost you. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. And this is fascinating information because once you understand what your brain was actually doing, you stop seeing yourself as weak and start understanding just how deeply your nervous system was trying to keep you safe. Codependency is not a personality flaw. At its core, it's a pattern where your sense of safety, worth, and emotional stability becomes dependent on another person's emotional state. When they're okay, you can finally breathe. When they're distant, upset, or withdrawn, your nervous system reads it as danger. Your emotional baseline becomes externally managed. This didn't begin as a conscious decision. It began as neural learning. This is interesting because research on early brain development shows that in the first years of life, the brain builds its emotional regulation around the emotional availability of caregivers. When love is consistent, present, and safe, the nervous system learns, my needs are not a burden. Love returns when I reach for it. I am safe to exist fully. But when love becomes inconsistent, warm one moment, withdrawn the next, the brain makes a different calculation. It learns to monitor, manage, perform, and stay hyper-aware of other people's emotions. Make yourself helpful enough, quiet enough, needed enough, and maybe the love will stay. And let me break this down for you. The brain will always choose attachment over authenticity when it believes connection is necessary for survival. That means many of the behaviors you thought were simply your personality were actually survival adaptations your nervous system learned very early. That is the neural origin of codependency, not weakness, survival. And that strategy doesn't disappear when childhood ends. It becomes the nervous system's default pattern. Every friendship, relationship, family dynamic, and even church environment can trigger the same groove the brain learned early on. Anxious attachment, the fear of abandonment, overgiving to prevent rejection, feeling responsible for everyone else emotionally, is codependency's neurological fingerprint. You are not broken. Your brain was trying to keep you safe in a world where safety felt uncertain. But what happens when the nervous system spends years living in relational uncertainty? Research shows that chronic fear of rejection or emotional withdrawal keeps the brain's stress system activated. Your body reacts to disapproval, silence, or distance as if you're in physical danger. This is why your heart races when someone pulls away, why you feel compelled to fix things immediately, why silence can feel unbearable. Your amygdala, the brain's threat detector, learned to treat relational tension like danger. Now here's what makes this so powerful to understand. Your body often reacts to emotional unpredictability before your conscious mind even understands what's happening. The nervous system remembers what the mind has tried to forget. And intermittent validation, affection sometimes present, sometimes withdrawn, activates the brain's reward circuitry in the same pattern seen in addiction. When approval comes, the dopamine hit feels intense. When it disappears, the brain craves it harder. More giving, more apologizing, more overfunctioning, more abandoning yourself to keep connection alive. So, for example, imagine you walk into a room and your partner seems quiet or distracted. Maybe they answer you with a short response, "Yeah, I'm fine." To someone with a secure nervous system, that moment might barely register. But for the codependent brain, the internal alarm system immediately activates. Suddenly, your mind starts scanning. Did I do something wrong? Are they upset with me? Are they pulling away? Your body becomes tense. Your heart rate shifts. You feel an overwhelming need to fix the atmosphere as quickly as possible. So you begin over-explaining, over-giving, trying to make them smile, trying to pull emotional reassurance out of the room, not because you're weak or irrational, but because your nervous system learned very early in life that emotional distance could mean disconnection, rejection, or loss of safety. And this is what's so important to understand. The reaction often happens before conscious thought even catches up. The brain learned to interpret subtle emotional shifts as potential danger long before you were old enough to understand why. This is why codependency can feel exhausting in relationships. You're not just having a conversation with your partner. Your nervous system is unconsciously trying to prevent abandonment, conflict, or emotional withdrawal in real time. So the codependent pattern is not moral failure. It's a nervous system trying to regulate itself through other people. But external regulation is unstable by nature. The more your worth depends on another person's approval, the more sensitive your nervous system becomes to losing it. The anxiety never truly decreases because the original wound was never healed. And the wound is this: I was never shown a love that stayed regardless of my performance. Then Scripture enters the conversation. Romans 5:8 says, "While we were still sinners, Christ died for us." Your brain learned that love follows performance. But Scripture reveals a love that arrived before performance ever existed. Before you fixed yourself, before you got it right, before healing, before breakthrough. The love came first. Ephesians 2 says salvation is by grace, not by works, not by striving, managing, earning, or holding everyone together. A gift. Zephaniah 3:17 says God rejoices over you with singing, not tolerates you, not merely uses you, rejoices over you. And studies on spiritual experience show that encounters with unconditional divine love reduce fear responses in the brain and shift the nervous system towards stability. Being fully known and fully loved without performance changes people neurologically. This is what Romans 12:2 calls the renewing of the mind, not just new thoughts, a new groove. Your brain can learn a different pattern, but it requires a different kind of love. Steady, unconditional, and not dependent on performance. So what does healing begin to look like? First, identify the trigger before reacting. When you feel the urge to fix, over-explain, apologize, or manage someone else's emotions, pause and name it. My threat response just activated. Not, I'm too much. Not, I'm broken. Simply, my brain is running an old survival pattern. Second, practice receiving without earning. For the codependent nervous system, receiving feels unsafe because giving creates control. Let someone help you. Accept kindness without immediately trying to repay it. Sit with it long enough for your brain to register. I can be loved without performing for it. And third, let God regulate what you've spent your life asking people to regulate. The nervous system will always need safety, comfort, and reassurance. The healing is not becoming emotionless. The healing is gradually transferring the source of that regulation from unstable human approval to the presence of God. Psalm 46:10 says, "Be still and know that I am God." The phrase "be still" means to release, to loosen your grip, to stop striving. For the codependent brain, that may be the hardest command of all. But this is where the new groove begins. You did not choose to become codependent. Your brain chose survival. It learned to perform, manage, overgive, disappear, and anticipate danger because somewhere along the way, love felt uncertain. But Romans 5:8 still stands. The love arrived before the performance. Your nervous system has spent years trying to earn something that God already gave freely. And underneath the overgiving, the hypervigilance, the trauma bond, the fear of abandonment, and the emotional exhaustion, there is often one deeper belief quietly whispering beneath it all. Even if love is free, I'm not sure I'm worth it. That deeper layer has a name: shame. And neuroscience now understands exactly what chronic shame does to the brain and what God built in as the antidote. And this is the part I really want you to remember. You were never created to spend your life earning love through exhaustion, anxiety, performance, and self-abandonment. What your nervous system learned in survival, God can begin to heal through truth, safety, and unconditional love. Now let's go back to that same scenario with the couple, but this time something begins to change. You walk into the room. Your partner is quiet again. Maybe they seem distracted. Maybe their tone feels slightly different. The old survival pattern immediately starts to activate. Did I do something wrong? Are they upset? Are they pulling away? But this time, instead of instantly reacting, you pause. You recognize what's happening internally and say to yourself, my threat response just activated. This is an old survival groove. And this is powerful because the moment you name the pattern, you interrupt the automatic cycle. You stop the nervous system from immediately spiraling into fear, overfunctioning, and emotional chasing. Then, instead of trying to manage your partner's emotional state, you allow yourself to remain emotionally grounded. You don't rush to over-explain. You don't immediately apologize for existing. You don't abandon yourself trying to pull reassurance out of the room. Why? Because your nervous system is slowly learning something new. Someone else's emotional state is not always a reflection of your worth. Maybe your partner simply had a difficult day. Maybe they're tired. Maybe they're processing something internally. But for the first time, your brain is beginning to separate another person's emotions from your identity. And this is where Scripture becomes transformational neurologically. Instead of desperately needing your partner to regulate your sense of safety, you begin grounding yourself in something more stable. Romans 5:8 reminds you, while we were still sinners, Christ died for us. The love arrived before the performance. So now, rather than thinking, I need to fix this atmosphere so I can feel safe, the nervous system slowly begins learning, I am already loved. I am already accepted. I do not have to earn emotional security through performance. This is not emotional detachment. This is emotional rewiring. And over time, something fascinating begins to happen neurologically. The brain starts building a new groove. Instead of instantly moving into panic, hypervigilance, and people-pleasing, the nervous system begins moving toward regulation, stability, and peace. That's what Romans 12:2 means by the renewing of the mind. Not pretending, not suppressing emotion, but literally allowing repeated experiences of unconditional love, truth, and safety to reshape the way your brain responds to relationships. And this is why healing from codependency is not simply learning better communication skills. It's learning, often for the very first time, that your worth does not rise and fall based on another person's mood, approval, or emotional availability. That is where freedom begins. This journey of renewing the mind is not about becoming someone else. It's about finally becoming safe enough to be who God created you to be. And this is only the beginning. We are just getting started, because underneath codependency are even deeper layers we're going to explore together. Shame, trauma bonding, emotional addiction, people-pleasing, hypervigilance, identity loss, narcissistic dynamics, and the powerful ways Scripture and neuroscience connect in the healing process. So if this video spoke to you, subscribe to your spiritual brain and join us as we continue renewing the mind through Christ. There is so much more your brain, your nervous system, and your spirit need to understand about healing, identity, and the way God designed you to live in freedom.